Live, where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Xtra.
It's December 14th, 2014. Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. Good evening. I'm Maria Garcia. Glad you're with us this evening. Well, when we think of where our tax dollars go, a lot of taxpayers think about the city or about the county. Those entities, of course, have politicians in them, so they tend to get a lot more attention. But really, more of your tax dollars go to our school districts. In fact, EPISD's budget for this year is $480 million, about $480 million. So even if you don't have children in the school district, this story affects you. The district really is at a crossroads right now. With a declining population, it's slated to lose thousands of students in the next 5 years. And money, too. You see, each student brings in about $6,000 in state and federal money, meaning EPISD stands to lose $30 million in funding over the next 5 years. The district says it costs too much to run aging, inefficient, underpopulated schools. So it's considering all kinds of solutions, from closing schools to combining them. Joining us tonight, Margo, president of EPISD's Board of Managers, and Travis Hatch, the co-chair of EPISD's steering committee, who's tackling this problem. You can email us your comments and your questions now to ABC7Xtra at KVIA.com. You can also reach us at 915-496-1775. On Twitter, tweet me at MariaGABC7 or with the hashtag ABC7Extra. Let's take a look at some of the developments and some of the details before we begin the discussion. EPISD says the district's enrollment is projected to decline from about 60,000 students to 54,000 in about 5 years, leaving shrinking campuses and less money. The options to deal with this include closing up to 14 elementary schools and 1 middle school, consolidate them with nearby schools, possibly combining Andress and Irvin, then build a new high school at one of the old sites to house both schools, rebuild 4 middle schools so they can accommodate kinder through 8th grades, reconstruct older schools in need of repair, and change enrollment boundaries.
This is the whole point of doing the survey, of getting the community's input on what they want to see in their schools, what's important to them on their campuses, what are their needs.
EPISD is holding 5 community meetings to get input from parents on which options they prefer, and asking taxpayers to fill out online surveys, though a teachers union says the district system is not user-friendly. The online questionnaire, for example, required a worksheet that some say is not easy to find.
When you say you're going to involve the community and you want them to be involved, don't give an older generation of people in the community an iPad and say, just take the survey online, because that's not the way they do business.
The district says it's also offering bilingual community meetings that guide parents through the survey.
If there is someone who has a question in Spanish, they can come and ask it. If they want to take the survey in Spanish, if they need help walking through that survey, we can do that for them as well.
EPISD is now asking taxpayers to be specific about what they'd like to see. Do they prefer K through 8th schools? Do they want to pay for upgrades to other buildings? How do they feel about their kids' school being consolidated with one in the next neighborhood?
But we haven't looked at the other part of what makes up a campus. Each one of those 2 schools that may be consolidated into one have 2 principals. So that means that one principal may not have another principal's job.
And some parents who've learned their school may close or consolidate already voicing their concern.
We're a smaller school, yes, I understand that, but our children get the right education. They fight to get higher grades. If they go and put us into another school with, say, 500, that's going to be like 800 students. How are the teachers going to handle this?
All right, let's start our discussion. Joining us now, Margo, thank you for joining us, and Travis Hatch, we appreciate you coming in.
Sure, thank you.
So these are some really difficult, consequential decisions for the district, and some community members have expressed some concern that the process that the district is using is not thorough enough. You heard in that opening piece that a handful of community meetings and an online survey just don't engage the community enough when it comes to a big decision like this. How do you respond to those concerns?
Well, first of all, I think the downside of not doing anything is worse than making the decisions we're trying to make at this time. Remember, our predecessors as trustees, elected trustees, did nothing since 2000. This is the first assessment of our physical capacity in 14 years, plus the fact that we've had a steady enrollment for the last several years of about 60,000 students. That's now demographically projected to be down about 1,000 students, as you've articulated, every year for the next 5 years. And what we've got is student population shifting to the northeast and to the northwest. And you know, one of the concerns that people have voiced, and I've heard in your reporting, is the concern over crowded classrooms and things like that. Well, what we've tried to say from day one is that irrespective of what decision is made and how, the teachers follow the students. And K through 4 has a state mandate of 22-to-1. So we're not going to, if anything, we're going to have enhanced classrooms with better technology and better outcomes. It's one of those, the economic viability of a community is solely predicated on the education of its workforce. And we cannot afford not to have better outcomes from our schools than we do now.
You said former trustees really haven't tackled this issue. YISD, for example, has known that it's had a declining population for some time now. They seem to be better prepared, at least seemingly, to deal with this. But like you said, EPISD hasn't done anything. In fact, EPISD's enrollment hasn't really changed much in the last 2 decades, but it continues to build new schools.
Exactly.
And that sounds like it's been poor planning for the last 20 years, Dee.
Well, I would agree with that, Maria. I would agree that there has been some wrong and or bad decisions made. And that's what we're doing our darndest to try to rectify. You know, the average home value in EPISD in the district is $123,000. The taxes on that home that go only to EPISD amount to $1,520. So, you know, everybody there has got a vested interest, whether you have children or not, if you own a home. So, but on the other hand, we're trying to do our darndest to make sure that the dollars are not going to antiquated buildings that are going to be more costly and long. I mean, the truth of the matter is, and Travis can tell you, we still have schools without refrigerated air.
And you know, I don't think anyone would contend that this process is not necessary. I mean, obviously, there's a problem, there's a declining population, it has to be tackled somehow. It hasn't been addressed in the last 2 decades, but because it's such a monumental issue, doesn't it merit more than a handful of meetings and an online survey to tackle?
I'll let Travis talk about the process, but the cost factor of not doing it is as great is greater than doing something right now. I mean, we cannot afford to continue this way. We really are between a rock and a hard place. We're reaching the end of the line. We have to do something. We can't afford to continue this way. It's too costly, and we're taking dollars out of the classrooms to pay for maintenance and rehabilitation and things like that, and we didn't even have a very good budget set aside for rehabilitation. We've just not done a very good job in managing our physical assets for the student population that we have out there. And we just have reached the point we cannot afford not to do something.
Mm-hmm. Travis, would you like to address the process and some of the concerns that we've heard from some community members about them wanting to be the process to be more thorough?
I think we've done a very good job of opening this up to additional meetings. One of our concerns were that we wanted to allow the public to come in and voice their concerns and also be able to provide their input through the surveys, not just at these meetings, but we also open this up online in order for them to be able to come in and do that. And there were questions that many members of the community had on how to do that, which we were able to educate them through these regional meetings that we had. And these regional meetings were very positive in this process. And I wanted to just emphasize that every day that goes by we are losing our opportunities to right the ship and get this thing turned around. There are no easy answers. These are tough decisions that have to be made, but we can't afford to wait any longer to make these decisions. And we're not going to satisfy everybody. We're not going to be able to offer the perfect solution for everybody. But as a community, to move forward and to provide better programs for our kids, better programs for everybody else that might have an idea of wanting to move in or not into our area, we have to move forward with this process.
You heard in the opening piece a member of a teachers union say the online survey is not user-friendly, that it's complicated, that it requires a worksheet, that's not very hard to find. And again, some say this is an example of the process just not being conducive to community input, that it's just not easily accessible.
I would have to disagree with that. We've offered a multitude of different options where people could come in and offer their input into the process. One being the survey that they could take on site at the regional meetings, one being verbal opinions on the input that they would like to offer verbally at these meetings, and of course the survey that's done online. We have looked at ways of making it accessible and easy. It just requires a little extra effort to log on to your computer rather than standing up in a meeting and voicing your opinion vocally. It just requires a little bit of extra effort on an individual part to log on and get on the website and find it. It's not a hard matter.
Tell them about the questions and answers being posted as well from every meeting.
Every meeting that we performed and that we conducted throughout the district, data was collected, and it was collected electronically, and it was collected on paper for those who did not feel comfortable in using electronic devices. And all of those numbers and those surveys were posted online for the public to be able to go in and see. We wanted it to be a transparent process so that people could track and see with their own eyes and form their own opinion on the tough decisions that lie ahead.
You know, speaking of the decisions being tough, I mean, they definitely are. You're saying how you're not going to please everybody. A lot of the schools that could be closed or combined are obviously older campuses, so there's a lot of tradition in these campuses and the community that surrounds them. There's a sort of sense of belonging, a civic connection to these campuses, and there are in newer schools. So that has to obviously make it very tough. How concerning is that to you?
Well, from our standpoint, schools are not like Field of Dreams. You don't build them and they come. We have always built schools where the population dictated throughout the United States, period. And we have shifting demographics that are factual and you can't argue with. We have more portables in the Northeast and parts of the Northwest than we do in other parts. We've got some elementary schools at 50% or less capacity. We can't afford to continue this way. We've got to align our resources where they need to be in the classroom, where the population dictates it. And that's what we're about. And we're kind of landlocked where we are, very much like Isleta. And so what we've got are shifting demographics.
You know, let's talk about the bigger picture here. Yes, there are shifting demographics, and so that leaves aging infrastructure that taxpayers have already paid in the core of the city. We see this with city buildings, we see this with school district buildings. I mean, does it concern you the way the city is growing, the direction of building in the outskirts?
For me personally, it's just a fact of life. If you look at other cities, this is a historical event that happens through the course of the life of a city. And our job and our responsibilities as citizens and also as caretakers of the appropriate funds is to use our resources wisely and to look for ways to attract people to want to come back to our school district and to do what's right for the children and to provide them with better programs for them to be better equipped to compete in the workforce when their day comes to get out and have to work.
Okay, all right. We have to take a break. We're going to take a phone call. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the possibilities that are on the table. So stay with us. Remember, you can tweet me at MariaGABC7 or with the hashtag ABC7Extra. You can email us at ABC7Extra at KVIA.com, or you can call us at 496-1775. Stay with us. Welcome back to ABC7 Extra. We're talking about the future of EPISD schools and the process to determine that future. Joining us now, John from East El Paso. John is on the phone. John, what's your comment or your question?
Hello, I was just wondering about that survey. It is a tough survey, and I'm just wondering, it didn't seem like you guys put a lot of thought into community members. Is it just something on a checklist so you can present it nationally? Like, yeah, we had a survey online, because it's really not user-friendly. Does this kind of speak towards the kind of management that the district itself is going through? Because replacing a principal and then getting them back in, it's very poor management, very poor messages to the community. I'm just wondering about, you're still going to do what you want regardless of the input from the community. Thank you.
Okay, so do you want to tackle that, Travis? John saying the survey is not user-friendly. It seems to be a poor reflection of management of EPISD. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, I've filled out this form as well as a concerned member and a citizen of the community. There are certain items on the survey that don't pertain to certain areas where a community member may reside, and they may be uninformed of certain items on the survey, which may make it a little bit difficult for them. But if you focus specifically on your area where you reside, it's not that tough of a situation to tackle.
Okay, my producer told me just now that we've been getting a lot of phone calls actually from parents who sort of are saying that kind of the same thing that John is saying, that the survey doesn't seem to be user-friendly, that they don't believe that it will be a reflection of the community's thoughts on the future. Is that something, obviously, that keeps on coming up?
This has come up from day one, and there is no conspiracy theory. There is no, this is not something that is designed to cover up things. It's a straightforward process.
But even if, obviously, even if there isn't something sneaky about it, if you have a lot of people saying, hey, it's really hard for me to fill out this survey, I don't think it was user-friendly, why not change the process? Why not alter it a little bit to make it easier for residents?
From day one, when we have had these kind of complaints, we have done a good job, I believe, of modifying the survey to make it a little more user-friendly. We've made it more accessible to the public. We've added on community meetings to the public. If we're looking to have specific items on the survey that address their specific area, and that's what they're looking for, that would be a very difficult task to accomplish. So what we are after and what we are trying to capture is general data in what is important to people regarding the areas that they live in the schools.
Okay, let's go to another caller. We have Lee from Northeast El Paso, I believe it is. Lee from Northeast El Paso.
Yeah, the draft, I was at the Andrews and the consolidation with Urban. I found that the draft itself was a little bit too complicated. There really was no transparency in it. And I think that draft should have been involved more of the parents' involvement prior to bringing that draft out to that meeting.
What do you mean by draft?
We don't have it anywhere. I think he's referring.
Let me just address that.
Okay.
The draft that they're specifically talking about is the draft of options that was presented to the community. In these community meetings, there were options, and you can find this also on the website, of all the different options regarding that specific area. Parents have been involved. There's a steering committee with representatives throughout the whole city with a diverse background, military, different ethnic groups, different walks of life are involved. students, teachers. There's a whole plethora of different community involvement on this steering committee, and all of them are responsible to spread these options to their specific parts of the community and inform them of what is being discussed. That's their charge as steering committee members.
Okay, we have a comment. This is a comment from one of our viewers, concerned employee and parent. This person writes, "We have been seeing and hearing about the plan EPISD has in order to save money. Instead of closing schools, why doesn't EPISD cut positions at their central office and also positions at schools in the office? Lots of schools have way too many employees working in the office and also cost us a lot of taxes. Can you save money anywhere else?"
Well, first of all, if you have fewer schools, you have fewer people in the offices, so you automatically cut there. But the last year we had about a $20 million budget deficit we had to deal with in our EPISD budget, and central office was cut $2.5 million. They reduced their overhead $2.5 million. So it's across the board. We're dealing in every area that we can and that needs to be right-sized. And now we're just trying to do it with schools.
And you know, when you were facing the budget issues this last time, Superintendent Juan Cabrera mentioned how management before had overestimated
Student
enrollment.
population, that's right.
Overestimated. So, I mean, this is in part due to human error.
Yeah, and it was unneeded. Remember, when we were installed as Board of Managers, it was in May of 2013. The budget had to be done by June 30th. We had no time to delve into the budget in for the 2013-14 years. So we took at face value what was presented to us. And unfortunately, those numbers were incorrect. So
how does that happen? I mean,
well, the person who was in charge of making that decision, quite candidly, who is gone, the CFO, did not listen to the staff which had the data. And why, we don't know. And that's that's just a debatable point. But the fact of the matter is, they overestimated the number of students, and it was wrong. And so we have delved into the budget this last year to a greater extent than it had been done in many years. And that's why we're pretty well right-sized on correct where we are. And we're also going in, I mean, we've done a curriculum audit. We've done this physical audit with Jacob's engineering study. We're doing everything we can to make sure that our school system is functioning at the level it needs to function for the better outcome of our children, period. I mean, Irvin got a STEM designation this year, science and technology designation from the state. So we were looking at, do we build a separate structure to house that area? Or when you look at Irvin, why wouldn't you want to build a whole new high school? And that's how we're looking at these things. For laboratory space, for all of the above, for the things that they need.
Okay, we have to take a break. We'll be right back. We'll take more of your comments and your questions. That's how you can reach us. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra. We're talking about EPISD schools today. From Erin on Twitter, she says, "I'm concerned about the K through 8th school option, behavior and maturity issues that younger students shouldn't be exposed to." And of course, she's talking about one of the possibilities is turning some middle schools into K through 8th campuses. But we've heard some parents who say, I don't think it's a good idea to have really young children with hormonal preteens or tweens. It's too much of an age difference, an age range in the same campus. What do you think about that?
Well, the only thing I know about that is the presentations that have been made at some of our meetings related to some of the studies on K through 8. One of our better performing schools is MacArthur. It's a K through 8. And we've got them now. So it just depends on what it looks like and what would fit best. I think the biggest driver ought to be the educational outcome and the resources in the classroom for those teachers.
Okay, and we have another tweet from Eduardo. He says the district should not dispose of buildings. Instead, they should renovate where needed and change the attendance zones. And then also from Eduardo, sprawl is not just a fact of life. City leaders can support infill development and stop annexations. Other cities have done so. And then Adrian wants to know, does Margo believe elected officials can run school districts, or should they be appointed?
No, I'm still in favor of elected. But when we talk about infill and all this other, remember, we have certain time limitations on this. We cannot afford to continue to take money out of the classroom and use it for rehabilitation. Not just repair, but rehabilitation. We've got roofs that have problems. We've got many. The average age of a campus, a school in El Paso Independent School District is 56 years. I mean, we're dealing with some significant issues irrespective of student population shifts. We would still have to be dealing. To do nothing, the projection is it would cost us $500 million.
We have an email from Christina. She says, contrary to what Mr. Margo and Mr. Hatch are saying in regards to the community input, the decision has been made. They will be closing campuses with an enrollment under 300. Teachers do not have a guaranteed job. They will not follow the students as they say. Teachers will be relocated regardless of where they teach, and their input will not be asked. This is just smoke and mirrors. They're simply doing these community meetings to make it seem like they are gathering community input. So there's this recurring theme from our viewers.
The bottom line is that is so false. It's probably not even worthy of responding to. Teachers have to follow the students by law. K through fourth grade mandates a 22-to-1 ratio of teachers to students. If the students are still here, if we still have 55,000 or 58 or whatever those numbers shake out to be from the 60 we have now, you will have teachers following those students.
But Dee, if you have a lot of people saying or believing, regardless of whether it's true or not, that the decision has been made regardless of the community input, why not change the process so that they feel their input is being received?
The decision has not been made. The decision has not been made. There are 4 of us who represent the trustees that were elected last year. Susie Bird and Bob Jeske are ex officio members of this group. Ed Archuleta and I represent the Board of Managers. We're not participants. We walk around, we listen, we look. I've had no full presentation by either by anybody related to the any preconceived notions or outcomes already determined. They haven't been. They honestly haven't been. That's why we're trying to get this data. And as far as the statistics that this person was calling in about teachers and all that, I don't know who they are or where they're getting their information, but it's false. And they need to focus on what we're trying to do to put more resources in the classrooms so that we have better outcomes from an educational standpoint for our students.
And just to touch on that, we have taken the original game plan for this process and we have modified it. And we have modified it because we do want the input of the community.
How have you modified it?
We've added more meetings. We've simplified the original surveys that were offered, and we've opened it up to verbal forums, which originally we were not going to. And we've added more steering committee meetings. So all of those things we feel have offered a great voice for the community to voice their concerns. We do have to do something. We're talking about millions of dollars that need to be reallocated to the student rather than to brick and mortar. Something has to be done. But what has to be done is still in this process of what we're trying to do.
Okay, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really good pleasure. Thank you so much.
Sure.
And thank you so much for joining us on ABC 7 Extra. We hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.